Brains versus bronze. A timeless debate that we find ourselves asking to this very day. However, in Big Klaus and Little Klaus by Hans Christian Andersen, we hear just how much brains truly does triumph. The story is intended for a slightly older audience. A long time ago, in a German village, there were two men named Klaus. There was Big Klaus, who was an old man that was as strong as an ox, and pretty rich considering that he herded cattle for a living. And Little Klaus, a physically weak and poor younger man who, despite his shortcomings, had a big brain on him. However, given that he was poor, he'd frequently have to ask Big Klaus if he could borrow some of his cattle. Big Klaus obliged, so long as he, one, always paid him, and two, never claimed that Big Klaus's cattle was actually Little Klaus's cattle. Little Klaus paid Big Klaus with what little money he had, but he didn't take these second rules so seriously. One day, when he got overly excited, he saw jumping up and down, saying, "Oh, this cattle is beautiful, it's mine!" "Hey!" Big Klaus yelled. "Don't you say that again, or you will suffer!" He said it again, unfortunately, and this time, he really did suffer. "That's it!" Big Klaus yelled. "I'm gonna make you pay." So he went to his house and grabbed the first axe he saw, went to Little Klaus's personal cattle, brought the axe up, and swung it down, decapitating Little Klaus's cattle. Fearing the same would happen to him, Little Klaus ran away and returned later that night when he knew that Big Klaus was asleep. He decided that he'd leave town, but he needed money first. So he skinned and chopped up his cattle and put its remains in a burlap sack. While traveling into town, it started to get dark, cold, and rainy. Luckily for him, he found an inn. He knocked on the door, and it slowly opened. "What do you want?" A shrill-sounding old woman made him jump back in fear. I am sorry, I wanted some room for the night." "There's no room. Leave!" She slammed the door shut, and Little Klaus, with nowhere else to go, decided to sleep in the barn that was right next door. So he climbed up its ladder and slept up near the haystack. He peeked down and could see through the window that there was a nicely set table with fine wine, bread, and delicious-looking meat, and a rather handsome-looking young man sitting there. By morning, an old man had found Little Klaus up in the barn. Excuse me, what are you doing there?" "I'm sorry, I just wanted some room for the night, but the lady in there, she wouldn't let me in." "Well, that's ridiculous. You come on in, and we'll get you some food." They go into the house, and Little Klaus doesn't see the wine, or the bread, or the meat, or even the handsome man from the other night. And he can tell that the wife is a little nervous. So, to get a little revenge, he decides to play a little game, in a way. "So, what's in the sack there?" the farmer asked. Little Klaus, looking at his burlap sack, claimed that it was a wizard that could grant him any wish. "For example," he said, "I believe in that cupboard over there, there's some nice wine." The old man got up and opened the cupboard, and sure enough, there it was. Then Little Klaus claimed that the devil himself was in that crate right behind the table. The old man was nervous. He walked up to the crate, slowly opened it, and jumped back in horror, seeing what he imagined was the devil, but it was actually the handsome man from the other night. So he closed the lid, chained it up, and asked Little Klaus if he could take it to the river and dump it in there. And also maybe if he could have the burlap sack. In return, he'd give him a large bag of gold. Little Klaus agreed and took the crate, gave the burlap sack, and took the gold. When he was at the river, he was about to dump the crate in. But the man inside asked him to spare his life, and in return, he'd give him a big sack of gold. Little Klaus agreed. They went to the man's house, and Little Klaus received a nice big bag of gold. Little Klaus stumbled upon Big Klaus, who was still hunting for him. And when Big Klaus saw him, he was surprised. "How did you earn all that gold in one night?" Little Big Klaus asked. "Well, you see," Little Klaus replied, "there's a whole pile of gold sitting at the bottom of that lake. Unfortunately, I'm not that heavy, so I can't sink to the bottom. However, you might be, but I recommend that maybe you tie something heavy to your feet, just so you can stay down there long enough." Finding two conveniently placed cinder blocks nearby, Big Klaus ties them to his feet and then jumps in the river, never coming back up, showing that once and for all that sometimes brains does beat bronze. Thank you.